Hey guys, namaste and welcome back to our Class 10 ICSE Biology series. I'm Ambika, Master Teacher of Biology, right here at Vedantu. I hope all of you are doing great. Whatever is going on in your mind right now, whether it's your pre-boards coming up or any sort of model exams coming up in your respective schools, please do post them in the comment section or in your chats. I will be very, very happy to read it. One more very important thing that I keep telling you guys, please give me suggestions on what chapter you would prefer to be taken up next, because as of now we are done with the circulatory system, the excretory system, and because of requests from many of you, I decided to go ahead and start the endocrine system, and after this I intend to start taking up reproduction and then the nervous system. This is the plan that I have in mind. Anything specific you want to be addressed in our upcoming sessions, please do post them in the comment section. If at all a good majority of you certainly want a session on that, I would be very, very happy to take a session on that. So please don't forget, children, because without knowing what will help you, what you exactly need, I wouldn't be able to go forward and give you the best possible inputs, right? Because all of you, whether you're in CBSE or ICSE, even if you are all in ICSE board, you may all be studying in different parts of India and in many different schools, right? And you, ICSE especially, you may be following different textbooks in your school. So based on whatever you find difficult, please consider this as a very urgent thing. Send me an email or post in the comment section below or in the chats. I would be very, very happy to take up whatever you would like to be addressed. Okay guys, so today will be our second and the last session on the chapter endocrine system. As I told you in the previous session, we just did the pituitary gland. And according to your ICSE syllabus, we are left with the thyroid gland, the pancreas, and the adrenal gland. Okay, so these three would be our topics for today's session. So let's not waste any more time. Let us get started with full motivation. And I really want all of you to believe that it does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. This is extremely important for all of us to understand. It's not a worthless thing that we were all told the hare and the tortoise story when we were very young, right? Because the tortoise is a very good example of practically having implemented this particular quote, right? Although it is a story, that has certainly been one of our childhood stories and very, very motivating also. Just slow and steady always wins the race. So doesn't matter at all, even if you have a sort of fear or anxiety in your mind that you have been studying very slowly, you have been revising very slowly, but all your friends have got so much ahead of you. It doesn't matter. Our time right now has to be utilized in the best possible manner. So plan your time, remaining time wisely and smartly based on everything that we have discussed in our previous sessions. Those of you who have not attended my sessions on creation of timetable, managing time, and how to study effectively, especially for ICSE boards, please go ahead and have a look at those. I'm very, very sure you will have some takeaways, some very, very useful takeaways from those. Okay, so do keep that in mind. It's always important to focus on your goals and not on your obstacles. So it doesn't matter even if you're going slowly as of now, okay? But you have to be going at a steady pace. All right. And very importantly, do not forget to hit the like button right now. If you have been enjoying all our sessions, do remember to share it with all your friends and remember to subscribe to our channel Vedantu 9th and 10th if you have not done that yet, because we have a lot of amazing sessions coming up in the days and weeks to come. Your chemistry sessions will be starting in the near future. Okay, so stay tuned, do subscribe and hit the bell button so that you get all the important notifications related to the channel. And let us get started. We know what the endocrine system is. This is basically the system of your body which secretes hormones. Correct? We have the endocrine glands which secrete their respective hormones, and we have already seen that the pituitary gland is called the master gland of your body, right? And why is it called the master gland? Because it is only by secretion from the pituitary gland that most other endocrine glands of your body get stimulated to release their respective hormones. But again, the hypothalamus is also an important component here because it acts as the switch on off point of the pituitary gland. Okay, so nevertheless, do not be confused. The pituitary gland, because it directly controls all the other glands, it is called the master gland. Hypothalamus only controls the pituitary and is hence the switch on off. I hope that's very clear. If it's not, post your doubts in the comment section and I will be replying to your comments if they are very, very genuine. Okay, so let's keep moving ahead. As I told you, we shall be looking at 3 important glands today: thyroid, pancreas, and the adrenal glands, right? This is as per your ICSE syllabus. First of all, the thyroid gland. This is an extremely important gland of your body. Of course, all the glands are important. Again, thyroid especially is important because it is said to control your metabolism. If you have a normally functioning thyroid gland, you will not feel lethargic or you will not feel overactive or over enthusiastic. You will just be normal. It is very important for that. Of course, those things, feeling lethargic or feeling over enthusiastic, can also have other reasons, of course. But the thyroid gland, since it directly controls your basal metabolic rate or your BMR, your metabolism in general, it is supposed to play an important role in that. Okay, so as you can see here, the thyroid gland is under the control of the pituitary hormone called TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. TSH, we've already seen this yesterday, right? And the TSH in the pituitary gland, the TSH is secreted when the hypothalamus secretes a hormone called TRH, okay, to activate the pituitary gland to release TSH. Okay, it's all right even if you don't remember this name for now. Just remember the hypothalamus switches on the TSH releasing site of pituitary and tells the pituitary, okay, it's time for you to release TSH now. And the pituitary very obediently releases TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. Just like the name indicates, it goes on to stimulate your thyroid gland. And where exactly do you find your thyroid gland? You find it somewhere in your neck region. I will show you another image on the next slide. For now, focus on this. Keep in mind that the thyroid gland secretes 3 important hormones: T3, T4, and calcitonin. And among these 3, the most important ones in your ICSE syllabus are calcitonin and T4. T4 is also called thyroxine. So thyroxine and calcitonin are the most important hormones as far as your exams are concerned for class 10 ICSE boards. Okay guys, so clear so far? Let's go ahead and see where your thyroid gland is located. As you can see, somewhere in the neck region. So this is the voice box that you can see, the larynx, and below that what you see is the trachea or your windpipe. Okay, and this is a butterfly shaped gland. It is a bilobed gland. You see that it's got 2 lobes, right? And those 2 lobes are connected by a band of tissue which is called the isthmus. This band of tissue which connects the 2 lobes, the left lobe and the right lobe of the thyroid gland, is called the isthmus. Okay children, and now let's have a look at what it secretes. We have already seen what we need to be concerned are your thyroxine or T4 hormone and calcitonin. First of all, let's focus on thyroxine. A thyroxine regulates your basal metabolic rate. BMR is basal metabolic rate, the rate at which metabolism of your entire system happens. Secondly, it controls all the cell respiration and hence energy production. And that I've written those two together because energy gets released in every cell by the mitochondria as a result of respiratory activities that happen inside the cell, right? So you must have learned all this in your lower grades, and it is important to understand that thyroxine has a role to play in the normal functioning of all of these. Thirdly, it maintains body temperature. Okay, and then it regulates growth and development of the body and helps in ossification of your bones, to form your bones, to harden your bones. Okay, that is what ossification is. So thyroxine is involved in all of this, but the most important point to be highlighted here is certainly the fact that it regulates the basal metabolic rate or controls your metabolism. Okay, so that's about thyroxine. Now, just like any other hormone in your body, an over-secretion or an under-secretion of the thyroxine hormone can have negative effects, correct? So let us now look at what would happen if there is a deficiency of thyroxine hormone in your body. We have seen something similar, very similar to this in the previous session, because TSH, we discussed TSH is one of the hormones, one of the pituitary hormones, right? So disorders related to the TSH hormone will be pretty much the same as this, because TSH is what activates or promotes the release of thyroxine, right? So that is why the first disease that we are concerned with is simple goiter. Now in goiter, this is a healthy thyroid gland. In the case of a person affected by goiter, there would be an enlargement of the thyroid gland. And this normally happens as a result of iodine deficiency. Okay, if there is an iodine deficiency in your blood, what would happen is that your thyroid hormones cannot be formed normally, because iodine is an important component of your T3 and T4 hormones. Okay, so it's important to remember this. Simple goiter is one of the diseases caused by deficiency of thyroxine, right? Now, the next one is cretinism. Again, what we have seen in our previous session, this is especially seen in infants or babies, especially because they have a deficiency of the thyroid hormones, or because that itself could happen because the mother was deficient in thyroid hormones during her pregnancy and did not detect it or take sufficient treatment for that. Okay, if that happens, children can be born with this disorder, which is called cretinism. And the major symptoms, if you can recall, are the child would end up having stunted growth and poorly, the poorly proportioned arms and legs. And it can also cause mental retardation in some kids. So that is about cretinism. Important to remember these names, children. Simple goiter and cretinism. And just in the case of goiter, you've been wondering, it's Goiter in some places and Goitre in some places. It doesn't matter how you write, both are correct. TER is the American spelling and TRE is the British spelling. So either of it is okay, it wouldn't be wrong. So going ahead, there is one more disease that we have to talk about under thyroxine deficiency, and that is myxedema. Now, this is a disorder wherein the affected person can have a swelled up face, swelled up legs, and sort of yellowish skin tone. And it can also affect everything, right? The metabolism will be weakened, of course, because there is not enough thyroxine being produced in the body of the affected individual, and because of that, heart rate and everything gets affected and decreases in rate. Metabolism is or BMR is decreased, heart rate decreases, and all of these symptoms can be seen in a person affected by the disease myxedema. Okay, so goiter, cretinism, and myxedema. Okay, so far so good. Let us now look at what happens in the case of over-secretion of the thyroxine hormone. This is again a case we have seen in the previous session related to TSH. The case is called exophthalmic goiter. Now, don't be confused because the name pretty much tells you what it is about. Exo is X or exo, or X, just consider the prefix X, means outside, okay, out. And ophthalmic, who is an ophthalmologist? A doctor who checks your eyes, the eye specialist basically, right? So ophthalmic is anything related to the eyes. So exophthalmic means bulged out eyes, as you can see in the case of this lady shown in this image. And it's a case of goiter, and hence you can see that there is a swelling in the neck, probably not very severe, but mildly there is a swelling in the neck area. Okay, that is what exophthalmic goiter is. So again, there are other side effects like because there is over secretion of thyroid hormones or thyroxine, the metabolism will be extremely fast, and because of that, appetite will be too much, and there may even be a situation where the person ends up losing a lot of weight in the case of overactive thyroid glands. So if the person has an underactive thyroid gland, we call that person a hypothyroid person. Okay, this is just for your information, children. Hypothyroid, hypo is under or low, hypothyroid, underactive thyroid gland, and if it's overactive, it would be hyperthyroid. Why I'm telling you this, although it's not, these terms are not in your syllabus, is that these days there are many people, many young teens and many young adults who get diagnosed with either hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. Most common is hypothyroidism. So you need to be aware of all of these things. Eat well, exercise well, sleep well, just stay stress-free. And stress is also an important factor that contributes to thyroid issues, not just your just any random thing that affects your thyroxine release. Stress is also important. So make sure you are completely rested and peaceful and happy all the time. Okay, guys? And now let us go ahead and look at the next hormone that the thyroid gland releases, which is calcitonin. Okay, the name probably tells you what it's concerned with. Calci can give you an indication that it's something to do with calcium. Right, so what exactly does it do? It regulates or maintains a balance of calcium and phosphorus in your blood. Okay, so basically how it works is calcitonin's ultimate aim, its first goal is to lower blood calcium levels, especially if it's found in excess. And how does it do this? It acts by promoting deposition of calcium onto your bones, into your bones. It encourages your bones to take up the excess calcium that is present in your blood. Because of that, the blood calcium levels end up becoming low. What if the opposite happens? What if calcitonin sees that your blood calcium levels are lower than what is required? If that happens, it inhibits calcium absorption by the intestines, and it also inhibits calcium reabsorption in the urine because it tries to retain it in the blood as much as possible. Right? So it has all kinds of workarounds to check the levels in blood, calcium and phosphorus in the blood. So again, a very, very important hormone of your body. So obviously it wouldn't be very hard to guess what would happen if there is not enough calcitonin. Usually deficiency of calcitonin causes a condition called osteoporosis, wherein the affected person's bones become brittle and weak. They become porous. That is what osteoporosis is. Osteo is got something to do with your bones. Porosis or poro is just pore, like the name indicates. Okay, so that's about calcitonin. And we are done with the thyroid gland. As per your syllabus, just have a quick recap of that. The thyroid gland is a butterfly-shaped gland present in your neck region. The hormones that you have to keep in mind are thyroxine and calcitonin. Thyroxine deficiency can cause goiter, myxedema and cretinism, and its oversecretion can cause something called exophthalmic goiter. Secondly, calcitonin maintains your blood calcium levels in the blood, calcium and phosphorus levels in the blood. Its deficiency can cause osteoporosis. Okay, and over secretion of calcitonin, it can cause an increase in calcium deposits on your bones, and that can also have a negative effect on your body. Okay, so as simple as that, calcitonin is easy to remember, and thyroid, if you recall and connect it with TSH that we learned in the previous session, it will be much easier for you. Okay, now coming back, the next gland that we have to discuss is the pancreas. All of you know where the pancreas are located, right? It's somewhere behind your stomach. It's a leaf-shaped gland, and let us have a closer look at this gland. In fact, this is a very, very special gland of your body. Why is it special? Because unlike the other glands we have been discussing, the pancreas is both exocrine and endocrine. What do I mean by that? If you have watched my introduction on the endocrine system, you would be able to answer this. Exocrine glands are those that pour their secretions through a duct into the target organ. Whereas endocrine glands do not have a duct. They are ductless glands. They pour their secretions directly into the bloodstream. Pancreas is both exocrine and endocrine. So it's one possible question. It's one of the favorite questions of examiners in both CBSE and in ICSE. Why is pancreas both endocrine and exocrine? Obviously, because it's got some part of it that acts as an endocrine gland and some part of it that acts as an exocrine gland. Okay, so let's look at what the exocrine part of pancreas does. If you recall the digestive system that you have learned in your lower grades, you would remember that the pancreas also secretes certain digestive enzymes, and they get poured into your duodenum of the small intestine. Right? So in case you don't remember that, it's okay, but try to imagine what I just said in your mind. It secretes digestive enzymes. The part of your pancreas which secretes the digestive enzymes are called the acinar cells and the duct cells. They are said to form the exocrine part of your pancreas. Okay, children? On the contrary, it's also got a portion very, very important for our today's session, which is called islets of Langerhans. And these islets of Langerhans are extremely important because they are the endocrine portion of the pancreas. There's an O missing here, endocrine portion of the pancreas. Now comes the most important part of the islets of Langerhans. You need to keep in mind that the islets of Langerhans is composed of 3 different kinds of cells. Okay, the alpha cells, the beta cells and the delta cells. Normally they are not represented using the symbols. You are expected to spell it out: ALPHA, BETA and DELTA. Just to save some space, I have put it in the form of the symbols of alpha, beta and delta. Okay, so remember not to write this in your exam. Not that it will end up making you lose marks, but it's not advisable, not the ideal thing to do. Okay, now alpha cells of the islets of Langerhans secrete a hormone which is called glucagon. It secretes glucagon. Okay, beta cells secrete a hormone that's very, very familiar to all of us. Most human beings, at least most Indians and Americans would know this, because it is insulin. Why do I say most of us know this? Because India is a country where there is a huge population of people affected by diabetes. Okay, so almost all of us know what insulin is. You must have heard of insulin injections and all that elders in your family who are diabetic must be taking. So you must be able to guess what its function would be. Okay, so hold on for a bit, we'll come back to that. The delta cells secrete a hormone called somatostatin. Somatostatin. Okay, now coming to the functions of these three. Glucagon tries to increase your blood glucose levels. Okay, whereas insulin does exactly the opposite. It tries to decrease your blood glucose levels, which is exactly why diabetic people take in insulin injections. Highly diabetic people, they take in insulin injections because the hormone produced by your body, the hormone insulin produced by your body is not sufficient to lower the blood glucose levels in your system, right? So in order to compensate for that, you need a lot more, or the affected person needs a lot more insulin in the blood, which is injected through the injection. There are also oral tablets that people take in the case of milder forms of diabetes. Okay. Thirdly, somatostatin. Somatostatin has a mild effect on inhibiting the action of insulin and glucagon. Another function that somatostatin has is to act on your pituitary hormone to reduce or stop the production of the growth hormone, somatotropin or growth hormone. Okay, children, so this is extremely important. The islets of Langerhans, which part of the body are we at? We are at the pancreas. The pancreas has got an exocrine part which is concerned with digestion. It secretes digestive enzymes which help in protein digestion in your small intestine. It's got an endocrine part which is called islets of Langerhans. That name is very, very important. Islets of Langerhans is made up of three major types of cells: the alpha cells, the beta cells and the delta cells. Alpha cells secretes the hormone glucagon. Beta cells secrete the hormone insulin, and delta cells secretes the hormone somatostatin. So because insulin and glucagon perform opposite functions, right? Insulin reduces your blood glucose levels, glucagon increases your blood glucose levels. Because of that, you would call both of them, or you would describe them as antagonistic hormones. Okay, antagonistic, which means they go in the opposite directions in terms of function. So it's not very difficult to remember the functions of these. Just keep in mind what I said. The insulin injections are taken only by people who are diabetic. Diabetic people, you know that they have too much of sugar in their blood. So to reduce that, if they take insulin, obviously its function has to be to bring down the sugar levels. So obviously if glucagon is antagonistic, its function will be to increase blood glucose levels. Right, children? So let's go ahead now and have a look at how it helps in controlling glucose levels, how these hormones help in controlling glucose levels in your blood. So basically what it does is it promotes uptake of excess glucose by your liver and muscle cells. And why is this? It's because they can convert the glucose, the excess glucose, into glycogen. Okay, they can convert the excess glucose into glycogen and keep it in store in their respective tissues. Glucose converted to glycogen. Okay, so glucose here in the muscle cells can also come from the liver, but most importantly, Remember that glucose to glycogen conversion and back can happen in both the liver and the muscle cells. So what happens is, too much of glucose, your insulin just comes as a VIP. It wants to get rid of all the excess glucose. It wants to send it somewhere. It sends it to the liver, and the liver sends it to the muscle cells. What does it do there? In the liver and the muscle cells, the glucose is converted to a form called glycogen. What does glycogen do? It just stays as a reserve energy source. In times when your body needs energy, when there is starvation or something of that sort, you have not eaten for a very long time, your body is not getting enough glucose from food because you're not eating. So what does it do? This is the backup mechanism that works there. It ends up breaking down the glycogen into glucose and releasing it into your bloodstream. Glycogen is broken down into glucose and energy is released. And here, as you can see, from the liver, the glucose that is broken down from glycogen is sent to maintenance of the brain and other body cells in your system. Muscles, it's a different system, basically because muscle cells need to be active all the time, so it parallelly runs along with the brain and the other body cells. Okay, so important to remember, liver and muscles involved in uptake of glucose, converting into glycogen and breaking it down back into glucose whenever there is a requirement of energy. Right? So I hope that's again very clear, children. Let's go ahead and see what happens in the case of too much blood glucose levels. Of course, all of you know this. This is the famous disease that we call diabetes mellitus. Okay, specifically diabetes mellitus. Diabetes insipidus is also something that we have discussed in our previous session. That happens as a result of undersecretion of ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so this is only with regard to insulin. When there is a deficiency of insulin in your system, the disease diabetes mellitus comes into picture. The symptoms that you can see in a person affected with this are these: frequent urination, weight loss without even trying for a weight loss, unquenchable thirst. The person keeps drinking water, but every few minutes, every 5 minutes or so, he or she may end up feeling thirsty again. And then tingling or numbness in the hands, legs and feet, weakness and fatigue, cuts and bruises that take a long time to heal. Okay, these are all the symptoms that a highly diabetic person would have. So what is the term that I have written here? Hyperglycemia. Just like I told in the case of hyperthyroidism, hyper means excess. Glycemia is glucose, excess glucose in the blood. That condition is what is hyperglycemia. Okay, now this is how the pancreas of a normal person and a diabetic person would look. In the normal case, you can see that there is glucose in your blood, the pancreas produces insulin, and the insulin is able to move the glucose to the cells as required. Everything good, okay, all perfect. Whereas in the case of a diabetic pancreas, the pancreas produces less insulin than is required. And when that happens, there is no match between the insulin and glucose levels. Insulin glucose ratio becomes affected. There is not enough insulin to carry the glucose molecules to the target cells. As a result, glucose ends up accumulating in your blood and there is an increase in blood glucose levels. But yes, because of medication and because of these so-called insulin injections, thanks to all of them and medical technology, all of these today can be controlled up to a certain extent. But yes, as always, as responsible citizens, it is important for each one of us to stay healthy so that our future can be good. So the earlier you start taking care of your diet and your body, the better and smoother your growth and aging process will be. Okay, so that's something useful for all of us. Now the opposite case. What about hypoglycemia? Which means there is not sufficient glucose in your blood. Hypo is less. These would be the symptoms that you see. The person feels shaky, there is fast heartbeat, the person profusely sweats, there can be dizziness, the person feels anxious, hungry, and then vision can get blurry, and then the person feels very, very irritable at times, and ends up feeling very tired and may have a headache. Why does this happen? It can either be genetic or it can be because the person hasn't been eating enough food. Okay, that is what hypoglycemia is. Now back to the larger picture, the endocrine system. There is one more important gland that we have to study, which are your adrenal glands. Where are your adrenal glands located in your body? This is the urinary system, the kidneys, which we have discussed. On the top of the kidneys, on the top of the left and the right kidneys are each of your adrenal glands, the left adrenal gland and the right adrenal gland. What you see here is a section of the adrenal gland. If you observe a section of the adrenal gland under the microscope, you would see that it's divided into an outer and an inner layer, just like the kidney, an outer cortex and an inner medulla. In biology, children, keep in mind, cortex is always something to do with the outer layer or outer covering. Cortex, covering, keep in mind like that. Medulla, middle, MM. Whether it's zoology or botany, that basic meaning doesn't change. Outer, inner, cortex, medulla. Okay? Now, this is a little more into the details of the tissue or one section of the adrenal glands. So as you can see, the cortex and the medulla, if you take out one section of that and observe the cells or the tissues that make up that particular area, you would see that these are the different parts found there. It's made of the adrenal cortex, or zona glomerulosa, the zona fasciculata, which is also part of the adrenal cortex, and then there is zona reticularis, which again part of the adrenal cortex, and there is the adrenal medulla. It's all right if you don't remember these names. Just keep in mind adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. Okay, children, stay with me. The next part can be a little confusing, but it's very simple if you pay attention. Okay, so adrenal cortex secretes three major categories of hormones. The first category that it secretes are the mineralocorticoids. What do? They basically regulate mineral balance in your body. What minerals again? Basically sodium, potassium levels in your body. That is what mineralocorticoids do. Aldosterone is an example of a mineralocorticoid, but again not part of your syllabus, so it's all right to ignore that name for now. But mineralocorticoids is an important term to remember, right? The second category of hormones that the adrenal cortex produces are the glucocorticoids. Now what do? Just like the name indicates, it regulates glucose metabolism, and up to an extent it also helps in protein and lipid metabolism. Mainly it's glucose metabolism, and examples are cortisol, corticosterone and cortisone. You must have heard of all these terms if you have been reading up a lot of sports news and all of those, right? The athletes can end up misusing cortisol, cortisone injections and all those things. So if that's the case, these terms will be familiar to you. Otherwise, it's completely okay to just ignore them for now. The third category is the androgens or the sex corticoids. What do? Androgens basically are hormones that stimulate masculinization or stimulate the appearance of secondary male sexual characters. So yes, androgens are found in both males and females. In the case of a female, if at all they are secreted in excess amounts, it can lead to various abnormalities. Okay, children? So for now, remember, the adrenal cortex produces mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids and the sex corticoids or androgens. And the adrenal medulla, coming to the inner region of your adrenal gland, that secretes your stress hormones, which are epinephrine and norepinephrine, more popularly known as adrenaline and noradrenaline. When you are under a lot of stress, under a lot of pressure, you are about to hit the stage for some performance, or you are about to give an exam, something like that. Some of you might have experienced that your heart suddenly beats faster, and then your hands may tremble, you feel cold, your hands start shivering, all of those things because of the effect of adrenaline. Basically, it is only trying to help you because it's trying to bring you back into your normal self by venting out all of your stress emotions. Another example is, of course, if you confront a snake, a very poisonous snake or a tiger, and then what gives you that reflex to run away for your life, escape from that? It is your adrenaline. It gives you that impulse. It gives you that instinctive ability to escape from that. Fight, flight, or fright. Right? Those are the three terms we normally associate with adrenaline. Noradrenaline will do the opposite in times of need. Okay? Now that's about it. This is about the adrenal cortex hormones and the adrenal medulla hormones. Now coming to the problems or disorders associated with your adrenal glands. Again, many of them we have already seen along with the pituitary hormones. Cushing's syndrome is one among those, wherein this is caused due to hypersecretion of the adrenal cortex, mostly by oversecretion of glucocorticoids. When that happens, what occurs is that the person, most important symptoms, if you recall, are that there are fat deposits. The person ends up having obesity, suffering from obesity. There is osteoporosis, and also there is hyperglycemia. These three are the most important symptoms of a person suffering from Cushing's syndrome or Cushing's disease. Okay, so this is due to oversecretion of glucocorticoids. When there is oversecretion of mineralocorticoids, another disorder comes into picture, which is called Conn's syndrome or Conn's disease. In this case, there will be high sodium and low potassium levels in the blood because mineralocorticoids are said to regulate your mineral levels, right? And high blood pressure due to over water retention in the blood. You can see all the symptoms here, and in the image here also muscle weakness, muscle wasting because of weakness and thin extremities, and moon face, emotional instability. All of these are also side effects of Conn's disease caused due to oversecretion of mineralocorticoids. The third one is adrenal virilism, a case wherein there is oversecretion of androgens. Especially it's a dangerous thing when it affects a female, because excess androgens in female can end up having male characters in the female, like excess body hair, having a deep voice, deep masculine voice, and having a broad heavy arms and legs and body proportions like that of a man. All of these can be side effects of adrenal virilism. Again, recalling the diseases which are caused by hypersecretion of adrenal cortex hormones: Cushing's syndrome, Conn's disease or Conn's syndrome, and adrenal virilism. What happens when there is undersecretion or hyposecretion of the adrenal cortex hormones? In that case, if there is undersecretion of glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, it results in the disease that we call Addison's disease. Again, we have seen this in the pituitary hormone, ACTH undersecretion, right? Because ACTH is not produced in sufficient quantities, adrenal gland is underactive, and because of that there is undersecretion of glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. And these are the major symptoms that you see: hyperpigmentation of the skin, low blood pressure, weakness, weight loss, and a lot of gastrointestinal problems. Okay, so it's important to recall all of these, children. Now, why I have left this blank here is that I wanted to give you an idea of how to make a table for this particular chapter. Okay, I'll just give you an outline. I want all of you to make a table for everything in this chapter. For instance, you should have the first column of your table should be the endocrine gland. Okay, the second one will be hormones secreted. The third one should be the disorders. The column disorders can be broken down into two. One is under secretion or low secretion of the hormone, and the next column will be over secretion or excess secretion of the hormone. Okay, if there is any other additional points that you want to add, go ahead and add it somewhere in the side. If you want to add some symptoms or something like that, you can either add it in the same column or somewhere in the side. But make sure you create this chart for all the glands that we have discussed: pituitary, thyroid, pancreas, and adrenal gland. All these four, along with their respective hormones and their respective disorders. Okay, so this is important because right now when you are studying this chapter, everything seems absolutely perfect, all sweet and good, but when your exam time comes, you may end up getting confused what causes what, or which hormone is secreted by which gland, anything like that. So keep revising this table. My suggestion is to paste it somewhere that you would keep looking at, so that it just registers in your mind subconsciously. Okay, children, this is the homework that I'm giving you for today. One of the homeworks that I'm giving you for today. And there is another question: how does adrenaline act during stress? I want you to tell me, how is it that adrenaline works, carries out its mechanism as a stress control hormone? Okay, come up with your interesting answers and we shall discuss that in the comment section. You can also send me an email if you are writing a handwritten answer. Right, children? So that's the end of today's session. Do not forget to download Vedantu's learning app. Stay in touch with us through the Telegram group. And most importantly, do remember to hit the like button, share it with all your friends who would find it useful, and subscribe to our channel Vedantu 9th and 10th, because we still have a lot more coming along. We're already done with almost, I think, 40% of your ICSE biology syllabus. The rest of it is on its way. Do send me your suggestions, your feedback about this particular sessions, or any general feedback on my email ID, or put it in the comment section below. And until we meet again, this is Ambika signing off, and happy studying.